Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStoryTV and the HerStory podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of another one of our tribe who is coming back to join us. Welcome back to the... Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi everyone, my name's Ellie. I'm 27. I live in Auckland in New Zealand, so we're currently the epicenter of the pandemic in New Zealand at least. And I'm a life coach, so I work with primarily teenagers, but also kids as young as 11. And it's been an amazing journey that I just love to bits. It's always unfolding in ways that, I could never have imagined it would. And often people say to me, how did you get into that? Was it always something that you wanted to do? And it's one of those things that I wouldn't say I fell into, but it kind of called me in. A few years ago, I published my first book. It was in 2018. I think I was 23 at the time. And that book was a memoir about my au pair experience. So I was a nanny or au pair in France for about 4 months after I left college. So I did a gap year where I was traveling Europe and doing my thing before university. And my experience as an au pair was so transformational that I just felt inspired by the whole thing. And because of my relationship with my host family, I thought to myself, it'd be lovely to just use my creative skills and create something that's like a memory book for all of us. And yeah, it kind of took on a life of its own. And post publishing the book, on Instagram, I built up quite a following of primarily girls leaving college or school. And they started really interacting with me and asking me for advice about making decisions and au pair related questions for the ones that were au pairing. And, how do you do this? How do you do that? What do you recommend for XYZ? And yeah, I just got into kind of coaching without realizing in that way, and just being a mentor for people that were on the similar journey to me or facing challenges. And over the years, like previous to my au pair experience during school and as a young teenager, I had a lot of experience working with children and in leadership roles in general. I was always, the one that was taking care of people or mentoring or whatever the case was. And I've always found it to be quite a natural thing for me. I've always loved being in that space. And when I'd published the book and I had that first year of networking and speaking in schools about the story itself, and connecting with young people overseas and in New Zealand, I took a chance on myself. I've never really invested mega bucks into myself before, but I found this speaking boot camp thing where you can develop your skills in public speaking and really hone your message. And there's me thinking that my whole message was going to be around au pairing and traveling. But when I was in that weekend of really intensely looking at my story, I realized actually I want to work with young people in general, just with life, just helping them kind of understand their own story and the power of self-reflection in a creative way. And yeah, that kind of inspired me again. It took another turn, and I kind of just built up like a following, I guess, more online and also just word of mouth, just expressing my interest in working with young people, seeing who wanted to collaborate on things, and just created my own mentoring and coaching programs. So now I run weekend retreats. I'm hoping to do another one as soon as the lockdown ends and we're allowed to. I had my first one in February this year. I have run ongoing, like term-long coaching programs with filmmaking and writing your own story, because my bachelor's degree is in filmmaking, so primarily writing and directing. So I've kind of done a bit of life coaching through that as well. And yeah, there's other programs that are popping up here and there. I have thoughts every now and then when I get inspired by a one-to-one coaching session. There'll be a theme that kind of pops up across lots of kids that I work with that they're all struggling with. So I'm getting inspired by their stories to think, okay, what's the need here? How can I be of more service? And I'm in the process of creating a new program at the moment. So yeah, it's always unfolding, and I'm really enjoying watching it.
Wow. It's interesting how sometimes your life experience can turn into your vocation. You
Mm,
went out to Europe, you were working as an au pair, and
yeah.
that just kind of took you down this interesting path. But
Mm.
why is it that you seem to say yes when the road kind of forks and goes in a different direction and you're not stuck on one goal? Because a lot of people struggle with that. They kind
Mm.
of set out in life like, this is where I'm going. And then when things don't quite work out, they get disappointed. Tell us a little bit about how you make that decision.
I love that question because I've always been someone that has been very much go, 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 whatever the goal is, it's going to happen. And I am still like that, and I will still make things happen that I want to achieve. But what I realized was when I took the chance to like create my own business. I was in a full-time job at the time, and it was very good money, very stable, very consistent. And I was realizing that my dream was not dream, but the thing I was trying to create for myself, the world I wanted to create for myself, was falling on the back foot. And I always had a reason not to push myself because I had the safety net. And when it came to making that decision of wanting to just explore and just see what the possibilities were, I knew I had to kind of let go of something. And I've realized more and more as I step into what I'm doing now that the only way, well, not the only way, the only way I've kind of experienced things unfolding and decisions allowing, like being able to be made easily, is when I let go of what my expectations are and what I think the best thing for me is. So it's just being curious and allowing things to unfold rather than trying to control it.
I love that. Now, right now with the COVID pandemic, a lot of parents are challenged having kids at home. How have you found that affecting your business, and where are you seeing the main areas of stress for young people?
I've found that one of the major things that's popping up across all of the age groups that I'm working with at the moment is primarily 11 to 14. But the main thing that is popping up is their concern around friendships and connections, and how they're going to fit back in at school, if they even go back. Just feeling like they've done some like self-reflection and assessment on where they're even at with their friends, and they're realizing more and more who they actually don't want in their life and who they can do without, and also who they'd like to see more of. So I think that there is a lot of stress, especially now because of exams for the older ones, but generally there's this feeling of disconnect and uncertainty. And because there's, some of them are even facing stresses at home where their parents are clashing over things like the vaccine, and they're feeling like they're in the middle of it. And there's other situations where the family environment's just generally stressful because of COVID, that they're kind of in this space of like they don't want to feel their own emotions because it's too much. So that's kind of where I step in and help them process. But yeah, that's probably the main thing I'd say, is just connection in general with people and themselves.
Wow. Now, your focus is primarily on young girls, correct?
It's both. It's both boys and girls, but I have found that girls tend to be the ones that draw towards me more. I have recently started working with more boys though, and I'd say that the average age is 14, 15. Yeah.
Okay. So, if I was a parent who's listening to this interview today,
Hmm.
and I have a young teen who's struggling, who's needing some help and mentoring, take me through a step-by-step process, what you would do when you are taking on a new young client.
So initially, the parents tend to send me an email or give me a phone call, and I call it like a diagnosis. They'd kind of give me the rundown of what's happening at home or at school or whatever their life situation is. And then that tends to be followed up with what they've tried already, because I'm not a qualified counselor, therapist, psychologist, and I don't claim to be. I'm kind of the alternative, outside the box, slightly unconventional helper, I guess. And yeah, so they'll kind of tell me what they've tried, what's kind of not worked, what their child tends to resist or enjoy. And my way of doing things is very much like, thank you for telling me, I appreciate it, it's good, I have it in the back of my head, but my focus is always on the present moment and what I get from the child in that moment, and forward thinking and future focus. And that doesn't mean disregarding what's happened. It means honoring it, but not using it as a way to anchor them into any sort of victim state or self-pity mode or anything that's going to keep them blocked or not wanting to step forward. Because what I find is often with some ways of dealing with issues that children face and teenagers face is that talking about stuff and getting it, like going over and over and over how they feel, keeps them stuck in a cycle. And because they get a certain amount of attention from it without deliberately trying to manipulate, it's easy to stay there because they know that they'll get people helping them, and they'll know they'll get people nurturing that side of them. But it isn't very empowering very often. So what I do is kind of bring in different ways, and I'm very intuitive. I work kind of in the moment. So sometimes I'll have a plan in advance for what I want to do with them, but often if I get to the session and then I see something else crop up, or they present something new to me, or I see that there's a resistance, everything I've planned goes out the window, quite literally, and we just go from where we're at. And it's always, yeah, it's just a process in itself. There's no two journeys are the same. I try not to look at anything that has been like given the child a label. And yeah, the parents often find that the feedback that I've received, especially over the COVID period, is that I've become someone that is quite refreshing to work with. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's always easy to end up in the belief of the parent to a point where you might not quite hear what the child has got to say. So that's really refreshing to hear. So if I was to take you back to the younger you, that young woman who took off and went overseas, if you could give her 3 nuggets of wisdom about life, what would they be?
3 nuggets. The first one would be trust your intuition more, because I think there were a few times, I mean, I did trust my intuition quite a lot, and that's like the gut feeling on things, and it did lead me down some really beautiful places. But I think generally just pay more attention to it and be more curious about it and see what you actually feel about things, because sometimes it's easy to get swept up in the hype of what's happening and not actually consciously choose where you want to be or go. Another one would be slow down a little bit. I got so much done in my gap year. I went to so many places and met lots of people, but it was very much like flying through all the time. And I often exhausted myself. So I'd go away for the weekend to different little spots and go back to England to stay with my grandparents, like at the end of it, and I'd be dead for a week. So it's like, slow down. And generally, I'd say this one's a bit more about personal relationships and things, but actually be okay with letting things go and letting things evolve, because sometimes the thing that causes us the most pain in life often is when we're holding on to something that needs to be let go of, or we're resisting change. And often what's on the other side of change can be far more expansive and beautiful than anything that we think we are going to experience. So yeah, those are my nuggets, I think.
That's wonderful. So we're going to take a small commercial break. We are having the HerStory Online Summit from the 20th to the 30th of November. We are still looking for speakers. So please go onto our website, register to speak. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. So go onto our website, theherstorycircle.com, register to speak, and come and share your story. So back to you, Ellie. Right now, like we said, the world is in turmoil. So many things are going wrong, but I kind of feel like things are falling into place in a very strange way. The Chinese write the word for crisis with 2 symbols. One stands for crisis, the other stands for opportunity. There is a magical opportunity that is unfolding. For those people who are aware and awake, your business was an in-person business, correct? Were you meeting these teenagers face to face?
Yeah.
So what has been the transition with having to do things online, and how are you finding your business growing now?
It's actually been a really smooth transition. I know teenagers spend a lot of time on Zoom anyway during school hours, and I knew that that wouldn't be a problem in terms of connecting over the calls and stuff. A little bit initially, I was like, oh, maybe they won't want to engage with me because they're on Zoom all day for school, so maybe they'll be like, no, not another Zoom call. I didn't want to be that person that was keeping them online when they wanted to stop. But it's actually been surprisingly straightforward. And what's even better is that it's actually enabled me to connect with people that I don't think I would have connected with as easily if it was initially face to face. Because there have been a couple of clients in the past couple of weeks that have chosen they'll have the camera on but not be showing their face, or they just won't have the camera on at all. And that's just their own confidence and their own getting used to me and getting used to something else. And I have no judgment, I have no expectations, and I let them know it's totally fine. I don't mind if I don't see you, as long as I can hear your voice, that's fine. And it creates that safe space, and it's actually enabled them to open up in ways that they probably wouldn't if they were with me face to face. There probably would be more resistance because I'd be able to read their body language, and there's always that uncertainty of like, oh, what's she going to think of me? And not that I have any judgment towards anybody at all ever, but I think it's helped them come to me in a new way, and it's actually been really beautiful. And I think that's the first time I've said that out loud, and it feels kind of nice to say that. And I know that I'm actually looking forward to kind of expanding with them and journeying with them a bit more, so that when we've got like a really solid foundation and they feel confident enough to kind of step outside of their bubble, quite literally, we can have that face-to-face time and grow in different ways.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about your retreats. What kind of spaces do you have the retreats? What can people expect their children to get when they come to a retreat with you?
I think the retreats have definitely been my favorite thing so far this year, because it's just a space to play. And I don't mean literally sit there with Lego and stuff, but it's a space where I think as we go through the teenage years and into young adult years, we forget how to just be light about stuff. Everything gets so serious and everything's so controlled, and peer pressure just hits you. And it's just, and I think sometimes, there's so much benefit in one-to-one coaching, but I think it was eight young women between the age of 16 and 24 that I took away in February to Hanua, which is just slightly south of Hawick, and it's out in the mountains. There's this beautiful lodge with like everything's made of wood, and it's absolutely stunning. And there's bushwalks, and you can see the stars really clearly, and there's a big pond, and everything is just so zen out there. And I think that alone, just taking people away in the first place, gives them that sense of I'm away, I don't have anything on me right now. And the space I create is very much you do you. I have workshops that I run, and they're very casual. You can be in your pajamas with a blanket around you. We can lie outside. It's very much participate as much or as little as you choose. All the food is fully catered, and it's really yummy. I go really hard out on delicious food and meals and making sure everyone's never hungry. And there's games if you want to join in with playing outside, literally being a kid rolling around in the grass. And then there's some deep self-reflection stuff. I took the girls out into the forest at night, and we had like a little circle where we were just discussing like life stuff and letting things go, and journaling and meditation and things. And it was just beautiful. And we did art with clay, and it was just one of those really delicious weekends. And I can't wait to do it again. We actually had one young woman that came who was very, very depressed, very suicidal before she came, and she changed her mind completely on following through with what she had in her mind. And she's still going today and doing very well. And I still, see her every now and then when I can. And it's just the power of just being around people that are not just indulging you in the stuff that's happened to you, but actually seeing your soul and seeing your heart, and actually embracing that and nurturing that, so that you can actually see it yourself and come out of whatever's holding you back.
That's awesome. And I think also meeting other young teens who have stuff going on themselves and knowing that you're not alone is probably one of the best things about going on a retreat like this for young teenagers.
Yeah.
So if I could take you into your future, and we pretended that time was an illusion, time doesn't exist, and you can have a conversation with the 100-year-old you,
Ooh,
sitting
100
in your rocking chair with your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, reflecting back on the number of lives you've touched. What would you say to that woman?
Oof, that's a big question. What would I say to her? I'd say thank you, I guess, because I've realized this year. I mean, there's lots of things I guess that will probably come up to me during the day now. I'll probably have this thought all day. But just I think what I've noticed is that age and stage don't really matter. Like, it's as much as, like, by that age, hopefully I would have touched the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. At the same time, I really see the power in just one person's life changing, and knowing that that person will have a ripple effect on other people. So yeah, I just say thank you for committing to being a light, I guess. That's to say, if I was still on the same journey as I am now, and not doing something completely the opposite or different. Yeah, wow, what a question.
Now, is there any question I should have asked you? I always throw this in at the end because sometimes I miss out on some real nuggets.
Mm.
Anything I should have asked you that we've left out?
I guess what are plans for the foreseeable future? Yeah, I think at the moment, if I was to just express where I'm hoping to take things, with the Big Sister Project, coaching and everything else, is I'm I'm looking to collaborate. I'm looking to reach out to international and national people in similar spaces. I do want to get more into speaking and sharing through that way as well. I actually have, managed to connect with people in the States, and they've put me on a parenting platform over there. So this is already unfolding. But in terms of New Zealand and eventually overseas, I'd love to be able to run retreats in different countries, or co-run them with people doing similar things. Um, and I'm actually, I'm in the process of creating a new platform for teenagers, like a friendship kind of platform where, like, they can literally come and make new friends and be mentored and actually learn how to make friends in a healthy way, and learn more about themselves, so that if friendships do break down, which they often do at that age, they don't come crumbling and thinking that they're worth nothing and that there's no hope. Because that's often what I see, is that once a friendship group divides or they start to feel isolated, it's the end of the world, and then they feel the most useless person ever and that they don't deserve happiness. It can get quite dramatic quite quickly, and I've done that. I've been there myself. I've been through the works with friendships over in my teenage years. um, so yeah, it's just, if anyone watching this feels like anything I've said resonates with them and they'd like to, work with me, to create spaces and platforms for young people and parents as well, because I'm finding often everything I say to the teenagers, their parents need to hear as well. It's often on par with each other. Then reach out to me, because I'd love to expand and just keep creating.
Fantastic. Ellie, thank you so much for coming online this morning and sharing your amazing story. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Come back again tomorrow, and I'll be interviewing yet another interesting guest. And have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. We now have a resource for all of you who have young teenagers. It could be a grandson, it could be a granddaughter. Ellie's website address is right underneath her there. So please get in touch. And thanks again, Ellie. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you for having me too. Take care.
Bye for now, everybody.